Citizens Involvement Council, the CIC. This is a gathering of all the neighborhood associations and their representatives to discuss issues of concern for their neighborhoods and to transfer that information to the city and back. With that, we'll pass it on to Katie for the
roll call.
Call to order. Thank you.
Okay. Tony from Berkeley Hills is excused. Michael Berman.
Here.
Paul Edgar.
Here.
Amber Holbeck. Here. Amy Wilhite is excused this evening. And Kathy Hogan.
Here.
Tom O'Brien.
Here.
Steve Anderson. Debbie DeRusha. Here. Damon Mabey.
Here.
Alice Watts.
Here.
Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Steve Van Haverby.
Here.
Diane McKnight.
Here.
Eileen Olson.
Here.
The Rickenbachs are excused this evening. And Todd Last.
Here.
Steve Tame. John Lewis.
Here. Okay. Sorry for that. I was a little speechless with Kathy sitting next to me this time.
Mr. Chair, can we ask to other people out here to introduce themselves?
I'm sorry. You're right. Let's have introductions of those sitting out in the audience so that they can take it. Oh, by the way, with Amy out ill, we don't have anybody to take minutes unless she does it right directly from this video. Would anybody be willing to take a few minutes?
Few. 30 seconds, maybe.
This is only going to be a half-hour meeting, so it'll be very brief, right?
I'll do it.
Thank you. Okay, just to introduce yourselves. Oh, my word.
Ray Gordon.
So
Howard
timid.
Post Geneva.
Laura Turway, planner with the city.
Bruce Danielson.
Okie doke. Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we do have a guest presentation this evening on the transportation system plan. And that would be Laura Turway of City Planner. And it doesn't say on here, but for everyone here, how long is this presentation approximately for presentation and questions?
How long is it here? Or Laura, sorry.
15 minutes.
15 minutes and about 15 minutes of questions.
Or 5 to 10.
Probably 10 minutes. Let's go with 10 minutes of questions.
5 questions. All right. Thank you for allowing us to be on your agenda. Again, my name is Laura Turway. I'm a planner with the City of Oregon City. I've been working on our transportation system plan with John Lewis as well. The purpose of this presentation is just to provide you a brief overview of our transportation system plan. We've been updating it, so we just want to give you a little bit of background and then tell you where to go to find out more information. It's a big document with a lot going on, so we want to give you places to find more information. If you have additional questions, feel free to go to our project website, octransportationplan.org. Call any of our staff directly. We have an open house coming up on Thursday in this room from 5:30 to 7, and we'll have a whole slew of Planning Commission and City Commission meetings as well. This green postcard was sent to over 10,500 property owners within our city limits and a little bit beyond within our urban growth boundary, to be precise. So just a little bit more background on this, all this legal information and what it means.
Laura, was that a test on our eyes?
Yes, they came with a magnifying glass. Mine did.
Oh, yeah.
Those lawyers, they just make you put in, yeah. So the transportation system plan looks at how we get around the city. And we have one now. It's about 10 years old. And so we updated it to the scope of the year 2035. So we want to look at, between now and 2035, what is going to happen with jobs and population, and is there going to be more congestion? Are there places where it's going to be hard to walk, bike, ride, drive from one place to another? So the transportation system looks at providing an equitable distribution of public improvements. So we're taking public money and trying to figure out which projects to best use it for. The process of updating the TSP has been a little bit of a long one. We've been in this, having meetings and developing the plan for over a year now, year and a half. We've been working on this, and so we're at the end. We start by looking at our existing regulations. Are there any problem areas within the city? What's our population growth going to be like between now and the year 2035, and what additional problems does that create? So we come up with a big list of problems, and then we had a series of meetings to try and figure out criteria and how we pick a project. So we created goals. We'll get into it a little bit more detail. Then we picked some projects. So we have two lists now. We have a list of projects that are likely to be funded and another list of projects that are not likely to be funded by the year 2035. There's a bit more in our transportation system plan as well, looking at street design and details such as that. So we're at the very end. We just finished creating a draft. It's dated January 2013. This is volume 1. This thick one is volume 2, which is the background information, but you can find it at all city facilities. It's at the library. It's online. Again, octransportationplan.org, as well as all our background information as well.
Laura?
Yes.
The list of funded and unfunded, because we had that list of unfunded but wanted to build, that's why we got so much money from the feds when they did that, like, because we had them already kind of planned and shovel ready, correct?
The jug handle, you mean?
Yeah, among other things. So it's a good thing to have a list of, if money is found, projects.
And with this new TSP, it's nice that we're distinguishing what we can afford and can't afford, which was not a requirement of our last TSP. We sort of everyone just had this list of projects that would be good for the city. So as you can see on the map, we're going to grow between now and the year 2035. You can see a lot of the growth, those big circles. The pink is household growth and the green is job growth. You can see that they're concentrated in some of our concept plan areas where there's land that is outside city limits but inside urban growth boundary, which are Park Place, Beaver Creek, and South End. Also a little bit here in South End area, and then some jobs. This is the landfill site. With more people and more jobs comes more congestion. This, we're just looking at our road systems. This is a map showing what our increased volume of traffic is going to be. You'll notice 213 is red because we're growing and all the communities around us are growing, so more people are going to drive through our community. 99, same thing. So, came up with this list of projects. How did we pick which projects should go on the funded, likely to be funded, or not likely to be funded list?
The funded piece
Likely.
might be a little misleading as well, but we are taking a hard look at development. It's funded assuming development happens. If development doesn't happen, they're still not funded either. And it's not like we have a large bank account with funding available to build these projects. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to you. It's looking at our growth projections during the planning period through 2035 and saying if that development happens, there will be transportation system charges that will be charged to that new development, and that's where the funding would come for these projects.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
It's important to note that we're not looking at creating any new fees or taxes or anything like that for this project. We're looking at the money that's coming in with our current system and what do we do with the money that we have. So we created a bunch of goals. They're listed on the screen, and we have a technical advisory committee and a stakeholder advisory committee. And the stakeholder advisory committee is made up a lot of Oregon City residents, business people from various aspects of the city, and they weighted those goals. So we figured out from our big list of projects how to narrow down what we really want to focus on. Some of those criteria resulted in us funding lots of smaller projects rather than spending what little money we had on one big project. This is how the projects were divided out. So on the bottom of the screen, there's a couple of graphs. This is our big list of projects. So the number of projects is pretty evenly spread through driving, walking, biking, but on the one on the left, the costs aren't all the same. Driving projects cost a little bit more. Those would include like intersection upgrades, different things that would accommodate drivers. So there was $73 million that were reasonably expected to fund. $148 million for the project that will likely not be funded by that time. So 220 is the list of projects that we came up with. Oh, and there's 360 of them. So quite a few. Yes?
Or could you explain family-friendly for us?
Family friendly is projects where if I wanted to go on a walk with maybe my child, my husband, and some other family, I want to find a place where I know that if I walk on this certain pathway or on the street, that other people are expecting people to be walking there. So maybe it is designed in a way where the sidewalks are wider or the shoulders are much wider. You're expecting people to be biking. So, you know, a couple of parents and a kid to be biking sort of next to each other on a street. So it's places where you would expect to see people walking, biking when you're a driver. And maybe it has more pedestrian crossings. It has better signage of those little bike signs on the road. It's places where if you know you want to be safe, you can go to those streets when they're fully developed like that, and you'll feel more comfortable. You don't have to, I mean, you should obviously be looking around at your surroundings, but the design is made so cars slow down a little bit and they elevate a pedestrian. So maybe cars don't run the street. Maybe there's a large space or a planter than a space for you to walk or bike, given just as much space as a lane. That's a good question.
I ask you a question too?
Yeah.
I'm seeing here the smallest, minutest transit with aging people, with people not having cars, or if you're going to jam everybody in and not give them a garage and a place to put things. The transit has better be better than it is now because it's non-existent, just about. So how are you going to get that?
We've worked with TriMet quite a bit throughout this whole process. Like the one in South End, there used to be a transit line. Now there's no longer a transit line that got dropped from TriMet. Essentially, they're waiting for more people to ride the bus before they put the line back, or more users or more rooftops before it's back. So
I have an interesting update on TriMet for my section. If you want to hold off on TriMet, I'll share a little bit of information I learned from
I
them.
would like to know.
Yeah, I don't see anything here on safety. As an example, in Kenema, we have very narrow streets and a wide right-of-way, no sidewalks, no safety place where people can get off, and high-speed cars driving through the neighborhood. So, and it has a lot of undulation, so the people can't see anybody walking in the street. Mm-hmm. And I don't see safety here identified. And for Kenema, we'd love to have something done sometime so we don't have somebody killed. Mm-hmm. You don't have a sidewalk. Mm-hmm. Where do you go? Out in the street, and it's narrow.
safety's been integrated into these projects. I'll flip through some maps and you can kind of take a look at Kenema and see if there are any of those projects, either funded or unfunded, that are for Kenema.
But it seems like it should be one of the criteria.
Actually, these are projects, Paul. These aren't criteria. So if we do go back to the criteria, I think there is.
I would look at it in driving or walking or something like that.
So these are the goals.
Top goal was enhance the health and safety of residents.
And then there's objectives underneath those goals, and then from the objectives, then we got specific evaluation criteria. So that's how we picked our projects. All right, so I'm going to run through a couple of maps. Again, I just want to generally show you what is in the TSP and on our project website. They're going to be kind of hard to read because our city's geographically large. So I have a copy with me here. There's a copy at the front up here, our website. Feel free to give me a call. We can go through all the projects. This first map is a map of street extensions. You can see generally there's some street extensions that would take Myers Road through to 213, some sort of road in the South End area. The exact location will get worked out a little bit. Concept plans going on there, so that's sort of folded in with the concept plan too. We took our concept plans that we already did, the Beaver Creek and the Park Place, and we integrated those road systems in as well. But you see connection through the landfill site if that were developed. All right, the next map is street and intersection expansions. So one thing to note on this map is the red is the likely to be funded. These little tags are project numbers. The white is not likely to be funded. I have pretty good contacts, but it's still kind of hard to see. So paper versions are better. I can send you emails or.
Black dots, you said white and you said red. What's
That's a planned, a conceptual alignment for a street.
So you said before you referred to some as likely and some less likely. What are those?
Red is the likely projects, and white are the not likely to be funded projects. But
So you look for that little logo is what you're saying.
there's little tags with a project number, and then on our website we have a project list of all the funded projects and all the unfunded projects, so you can look it up and see what it is. And then it will also tell you the timeline if it's short term, which is 0 to 5 years, medium term was 5 to 10 years, or long term, which is more than 10 years.
I would like to ask.
One thing I'd add, these maps, if you look on them online, you can actually zoom in using a PDF viewer, and not only do they get, zoom in, but all the, all the clarity comes with it. So you can zoom in on any neighborhood that you might be interested in and get much better graphics.
Well, I already have a question on it.
Yeah.
The one before, you have it right where I'm thinking there is a creek going through Parish Road to connect, and there's a creek there that you would have to. It's Little Beaver Creek. Have you gone out there and really realistically look at these? Have you used the LiDAR maps to see where the landslides are in the South End district, and actually in the McCord and Pease district?
The South End area specifically, since we're working on a concept plan, that one can change a little bit. If the concept plan changes the design, then we can go back and amend the CSP. It's just our timing is first before their concept plan. But there has been quite a bit of background on these street locations. They're conceptual locations, so it's just generally where a street's going to be. I mean, if you have to cross the stream, you have to cross the stream. Obviously, we want to limit stream crossings as much as possible because it's, as you know, we want to protect the stream, and it's more expensive and maybe not needed. So.
Yeah, because I see the little green line dotted that says it's a plan collector. And the way you're going to be going through a lot of the Little Beaver Creek streams and hillside. So I'm kind of thinking, why not look at it realistically where you can rather than just a conceptual? Because that's not going to be what it's going to be.
The more idea is just to get
Let me say something, didn't you?
general connections.
I don't know.
So like the Beaver Creek or the South End to get something generally north-south along here. So we can tweak
Correct
that.
me if I'm wrong, Laura, that more of your presentation tonight is to tell us kind of what's in the transportation plan, but if somebody wants to get in more particulars, either from this CIC representatives or from neighborhoods, that you're going to have the next 2 planning commissions, I believe, are workshops on this, where people can come and make presentations and ask more specific questions about parts of the plan, and then you're going to be before the full commission, the city commission. So what you're doing right now is not to have some of the questions that you're getting right now about particulars, but more of just, this is what the plan is, and please come and ask us at the planning, the presentation Thursday and at the next few meetings, correct?
Exactly. And if a project doesn't make sense, email me, send us a comment, and I mean, this whole process, we're evolving this document as we go through the process. So we already looked at that one. Here's some management improvements. You'll notice a roundabout. This is Warner Milne Lynn. Warner Parrott. And then here's a street light. So we're looking at management. We're taking the street we already have. How can we make it function better? Again, those are online. Here's Walking Solutions map. It's a little bit more difficult to see, but it's looking at where we have sidewalks, where we want more sidewalks, where we want street crossings. The red dots are road crossings. The green is the family-friendly streets as well. Biking, where we have bike lanes, where we want bike lanes. Just try and make sure that we have a cohesive network. As you know, when development is constructed, they might do a piece of a bike lane. So we sort of have bits and pieces. We want to make sure as development occurs that those bits and pieces line up. We're also doing amendments to our code to implement the transportation system plan. So when someone wants to subdivide land or build a commercial building or something like that, they'll have to go through a process with the planning department. There are some sections of our code that were in an odd order, so we did some reorganization. We also tweaked some development standards in order to comply with Metro and other state standards. We added maximum block sizes, which essentially forces larger commercial developments to have streets through them. Driveway spacing, some congestion, allowing greater congestion during peak periods downtown, changes to our parking standards for off-street parking or parking lots. There's a little bit more, but that's just the major highlights of our code. Again, it's online. So the next step is to go through a legislative review process. The transportation system plan's already turned in an application for legislative review, which is the planning process to get it adopted. As you mentioned, it requires lots of meetings. So coming up next week, there will be our first Planning Commission work session. It's only going to be on the TSP itself. Then we'll have a second Planning Commission work session on just the code itself. And then we'll go through a couple of Planning Commission hearings. And if the Planning Commission is happy with it and wants to recommend approval to City Commission, we'll do the same thing with them. These are some anticipated dates. Obviously, if the Planning Commission or City Commission wants to meet more or find out more information, then we would add dates to this.
Before you move from that, are citizens who are involved in this, can they come to the work sessions like the Planning Commission, or should they only plan on coming to the actual hearings? I'm not sure if they can come to work sessions to express their opinions.
Our work sessions are open. It's up to the Planning Commission to decide if they want to hear public testimony at work sessions. Traditionally, they have, but it's up to the Planning Commission chair. Work sessions are good if you want to attend or watch them streaming online or on demand online as well, because it's going to get into the details of certain projects or design of, say, family-friendly streets with diagrams and things like that. So it's good information to know whether you're there at the meeting or not. We are anticipating, again, taking everyone's public comment. We want this to be a really good document. So we've met a lot with a lot of citizens and a lot of meetings to make sure that it is reflective of Oregon City goals and it makes sense and there's not a street project that's not going to happen or, so we want your feedback.
Maybe you or Damon can respond, since I'm new on the Planning Commission, but what is the difference between the work session for people in the audience who want to make comments and the actual hearings? Session gets down to the nitty-gritty and then it comes before the Planning Commission, but isn't that still the same kind of a thing? They get down to listening to the citizens' comments. I mean, I'm not sure the difference between the two types of meetings for this particular kind of a plan.
The scope that we're going to talk about at a work session is deeper than what we're going to talk about at a hearing. So at the first Planning Commission hearing, we'll look at both the TSP and the code in one meeting, whereas the work session will separate those out. So the scope is not as deep. We'll assume that you'll have read and loved this whole document and had comments for us at that meeting.
And this is open to the public, all those 4
Everything
meetings.
is open to the public.
Right.
We have, speaking of open to the public, our next step is an open house, which is in this room on Thursday. And we'd like to hear what you think, take a look at our plans. We will have all the project boards up so you can talk with staff. You can give us your comments on any of those projects, find out more details. And again, octransportationplan.org has been a really great resource for us. We've posted all our documents throughout this entire process on that website. And there's an interactive comment map. We've received over 150 comments on it from citizens, and it's been helpful. So are there any other questions I can answer regarding our TSP? Yeah.
Where do you reflect the planned economic growth so we could kind of overlay where the city sees where it's going, where all of the new jobs are going to be created? Obviously, I see the thing of, like at the Rossman landfill, but that's historically has been a mirage. Where else are we looking at so that we can see how we should be anticipating transportation facilities for that type of growth?
That's a good question. Our project is really timely because so Metro, has all these models to try and figure out what transportation is going to be in the future, and they had a project year before that we worked on, and we could use that information for this. So it looked at when all the property within our urban growth boundary is built out, what will those uses be, and what is that general density going to be like? And that's where we can pull data to try and figure out what our 2035 vision will look like, or what will look like where the jobs will be. So they'll take zoning districts, and then they put in permitted uses, and they have this computer
Off your
model.
top of your head, where do they show creating jobs around Oregon City?
The first map.
Circles. The green dots.
We can get into a little bit more detail, but it's green dots, and the city met with Metro. That also took about a year to go through. It's still not actually adopted yet. It's before Metro Council for adoption. They did it for the whole Metro region.
This was for Metro?
We had to pull this information to look at what our density will be like in the future and what our permitted uses are in each of their zoning designations. It was a Metro project, but we used the same data because it was at the same time we were doing ours. So it worked out to be quite timely. Metro required it for all areas of the Metro region. When you have a transportation study, they pull that to try and figure out what transportation impacts you'll have. So they keep sort of a database of what your zoning is, and you take out areas for streams and sort of come up with a general number.
So a green dot means it's just in the vicinity.
Yep. There's TASs or sort of groups. You can't see the lines.
For example, I'm looking on Holcomb and I see a green dot up there. I'm going, but there's a school there and that's all residential. Where
home occupations get picked up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then they're in the concept plan area, right where it says Oregon City. There's that little bit of commercial there, but there's MUC zoning on Holcomb.
Keep in mind the gray lines are an area, and there's 2 dots in each area, right? So the size of that dot, every area gets 2 dots. And they're just generalizing these numbers. I mean, this is kind of, there's a little bit there's a lot of detail that goes into this, but at some point in time, they kind of have to generalize these numbers. And that's not to say that there's not going to be along Malala Avenue, that there's not going to be an increase of something. There might be a slight increase more than 500 households in that area, but that's. I mean, we're working with pretty general numbers here. So I think overall, the other thing is keep in mind these are 2035 numbers. So we update our transportation system plan. The last one was 10 years old. Now we're another 10 years. We're going to be updating that and always looking out, to a longer range number like 2035. So, our projects are based on some number that, we'll get to, every 10 years, assuming we do a transportation system plan, we'll always look out far.
Well, John, as an example, we know that there's probably an 80 or 90% probability of a Walmart sitting up there by where Warner Milne comes out to Malala Avenue. And yet I don't see one single dot there, and that's a Walmart historically draws a couple people. And, I look around and I see some of these other things around, like on Beaver Creek or out there in some of the places through there. And, wow, we've been trolling it for 15 years and had 0 people look at it. 0. So, and then I see one where I know there's going to be a Walmart, and it's not even up on the map.
It is. It is on.
Paul, I have to disagree with you. Look at the map. Right on the spot where Walmart is potentially going is the dot. There's a green dot right there. And that means approximately 500 jobs.
Oh, I was looking where it's right there. I know, but it's actually right there.
I'll be happy
The
to
other
share
side
the TAS
area.
data too, and you can see what those boundaries
Thursday's
are.
the night to come and ask more questions.
Thursday's the night.
I've got a question too. Since I live in the largest red dot area, and a lot of my neighbors were very panicked when they saw that because it's already development in that area is a very sensitive issue. And so I may be asking the question that was asked before is people are asking where did that data come from? How are they figuring that out? And I think on your next slide, it didn't really show any traffic growth along that same area. So those to me seem to be kind of counterintuitive. So, and I've looked on you have a ton of information on here. And my other question is, the question I get from a lot of people is, they kind of look at this and their eyes gloss over. And what they're asking is, what does this mean to me? And so what's the best answer you can, aside from coming to the meetings, for the average person, what's the best way to figure out what's this going to mean to them?
You mean a couple different things. One is what streets are going to look like in the future. If you have a problem, you're on a pathway with your kids walking and you can see the other side, you just can get there, tell us, and then maybe it'll get on a project list. So that would be meaningful. What projects you have around your house or wherever your daily activities would be helpful.
I think for me, Todd, the thing you can tell your neighbors is the people, the committees, the staff, and the consultants that are looking at this are trying to look at the best information we have available to us to project growth, whether it be jobs or population, and apply that to our existing road system, keeping in mind all this public involvement and comments. And there's been thousands of comments that we've gathered throughout this about what people want with regard to sidewalk connectivity, how they feel about the idea of trying to. A lot of this strategizes on trying to get people to the degree that's manageable out of their cars so that they can walk or bike and do some of those kind of things. So it's really it's a pretty comprehensive look at transportation in your city. There may be, it's about a 6,000 foot level look as well. So as you look at the South End plan or the Beaver Creek plan or the Park Place plan, those are intended to kind of further narrow that. South End's going to be most timely because we had an old outdated TSP when we did Beaver Creek and Park Place. But South End will look tighter at that. And then as projects come in or as we do corridor plans within those concept areas, those will narrow that even further. And so it's trying to it's a planned approach to growth, and it's consistent with what the region's doing right now. So,
Okay.
So if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to email me, call me. You can call a consultant. Any information you want, we want to give it to you. And we want to hear from you.
I would suggest that you look at what Todd just said to you, because if you're going to have that many new residential areas along that corridor near McCord, and you're not even showing any new transportation there, there's a problem.
Yeah, we can get into details about the traffic, but the traffic's taken at a PM peak period.
PM peak,
It's
but if
only
you've got how many thousands of new residents there that you're projecting?
Yeah, each resident doesn't have a one trip per PM peak. They might leave, before that peak hour, after the peak couple of hours. So we can, if you give me a call, we can talk about the transportation model, and I can give you our phone number to our consultant if you want to talk about them. Want to talk to them about the
I'll give
numbers
you
as
a call.
well.
And I also, on some of the subdivision plans, I've seen the peak traffic models, and I would suggest that needs to be looked at, because my personal experience watching what happens in our neighborhood, those numbers are very relative, especially when we have two parents working and there's more than 10 peak
And you have no shopping.
Amber has a question also.
Thank you. I was just wondering with that slide of, do I have to talk to them? Okay. With the slide, the 2035 congestion, how, with regard to the 2035 more congestion slide, how do the experts go about determining, I see faintly there's a yellow line, there's a light green line, and there's the red line of highest congestion.
how do you compare this slide with where we are today? That's kind of where I'm interested to see.
We can provide that information to you. So this is, if at 2035 we do nothing or maintain. The text is very small, but it looks, they use the IT manual in our city to figure out what transportation congestion would be and how many trips would come from particular uses. So this just looks at, the green has, if you have 250 more trips during a certain hour or PM peak hour, and then the yellow is 250 to 500 trips. So if you go to someone's house and pick them up and then leave, that would be one trip going to the house and one trip leaving. And then the red is more than 500, but only in that time period. So that's how we'll do our traffic studies and development.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we can give you a map, whatever you need, let us know. And my card's in the back.
Okay.
You need my information.
It's now been 40 minutes, so we'll move on. All right. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm sorry, can I make a brief announcement? Someone with a red Subaru out in the parking lot has their lights on. Just wanted, so someone could turn them on in case the battery is dead.
Okay. Didn't mean to startle you. Okay, next on the agenda. We moved this up on the agenda because he usually waits through all our talks, and we thought John Lewis deserved to be able to leave early and get back to his family. So we number 3 on the position, ask OCPW, Oregon City Public Works.
I do appreciate being moved up, and I'll stick around if I need to. But if I don't, I'd just assume not. So thanks again for that. A couple things I wanted to give you an update on. We've been talking to PGE, and PGE is moving forward with a LED change-out program for all their street lighting. In Oregon City, it's a pretty significant undertaking. They're starting, what I understand, they started today in Estacada, and they're going to move through the town of Estacada, and then they're coming to Oregon City. So I won't say every street light in Oregon City is going to change from what it currently is to LED, but most of those, what we call Cobra Head street lights, so the ones that kind of look like a Cobra Head, not any of the acorn, which look decorative and have more of an acorn type. So a lot of those that are often hanging from a power pole, you'll see those change. So keep that in mind and keep an eye out for that. I think the lighting intensities may change a little bit, but generally people see LED lights as more favorable than the high pressure sodium that we have out there. So keep that in mind. Don't have a date yet, but we didn't have a meeting today for the McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2 project. Some of you sit on that committee, but there will be an open house in April. Date yet to be determined, and they'll be discussing the 30% design drawings. So this is McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2, which is from Clackamas River Bridge to Dunes Drive. So keep that on your awareness list. Wanted to let you know we're going to do something in-house that we haven't done before in this town, and we're looking forward to trying it. On 7th Street at John Adams, I think many of you are familiar with this. It's right there between the Singer Hill Cafe and the Carnegie, and the fire station's on the other corner, and then there's I think a chiropractic office. We're going to install a pedestrian-activated flashing beacon right there with a crosswalk. So if you're on the Carnegie corner and you want to cross 7th Street, you'll be able to cross at that location. You'll actually hit a button that will activate a yellow rapid flashing beacon. Some of you may have seen them in other communities where they really are unnoticeable. And we've not done it. We are going to spend some money that we had budgeted for something else that we pushed off and decided to go ahead and install it in this location. We think we're going to spend about $20,000 just to get that in place, but it's near the current library site, and there's a fair amount of pedestrian activity. I think the McLaughlin neighborhood has been pressing us for that as well. So we want to try it, see how it works, see if we can do that installation in-house, and so look for that. And we've yet to order that, but we will soon.
John, will that include the pavement lights?
No, it will not.
Okay.
It'll just be they're pretty unique though in that they you can turn the sign and you can actually turn the lights for really good driver awareness. So, yeah, that's our plan there. The other news that's not so good that I wanted to pass along was we applied for a state transportation improvement grant for Main Street from 10th to 15th. And there's been a county group that's been looking at projects. There was way more projects than there was funding available. And what we learned recently was that our project was not on what they're calling the 150% list. So they've taken the project list for the region, narrowed that down to what 150% of what they can afford to do, and our project's not on it. So we're going to keep trying on that. There was another project that we also submitted on that we cut early on just because they asked us to cut, if we had more than one project, to cut it in half. And so the other project was Malala Avenue from Beaver Creek Road to Highway 213. And when we pulled that off of our STIP project list, we decided that we were going to pursue Metro's what's called MTIP, Transportation Improvement Projects, I believe. So that's another funding cycle. Again, not very much money in there, lots of competition. We think Malala Boulevard because of the or Malala Avenue because of the living on one side of Malala and the commercial on the other, and the lack of pedestrian crossings and the lack of bus stops and sidewalks. There's lack of street lighting. We think it's a good project, so we're going to push for that one. So we're still pursuing grants, and what I will say is the grant environment is not what it used to be. There's a lot of demand for those projects, for that project funding, and not very much to give out. So keep that in mind. South End Speed Study, we just got results today in the mail that said they will, or they're in agreement that it should be 35 basically from the city limits into basically the South End Hill. So they looked at that whole corridor, and there was some
45?
inconsistency.
35.
35. So there's a little bit of process. We were asking for some direction from them today about, well, can we go ahead and sign it now, or there's still one more, I think, order. They wanted us to review the results, and we did. So I think that'll hopefully happen in the next couple of weeks. Pearl Street, we've got a construction project of Pearl Street, which is really it's at the steepest portion of Pearl Street. So if you think about it, as you come from Malala Avenue and you kind of head down to Lynn, there's a real narrow spot there and a real steep spot. And we put together a small works project that we've got bids on. S2 Construction's going to be awarded that project hopefully on Wednesday night. It's a $130,000 project. We'll be building a wall to make that a little bit wider, replacing that guardrail along there, and then that section of Pearl is also in our paving project list for this year. So once the wall work's done and everything's patched back, we'll plan to pave that with the paving project. So that's another little piece. TriMet, we met with TriMet, the city manager, and Carol Pauley and myself met with the director of TriMet, specifically to talk about South End and the fact that we've lost bus service out there. And I think Commissioner Pauley, it's been something that she's been asking us to pursue, and I think she's been to a fair amount of the South End concept plan meetings, and so she asked the city manager to put that meeting together, and so we got a chance to sit down with them and talk about that. They've got some constraints, I would say, with regard to some of their contracting with employees, let's say, and so that's part of the reason why their costs are where their costs are. They just can't afford to run some of these bus services in those areas that are less traveled. So, I think South End is an area that they're willing to look at. They've asked us to work with their staff who have been working with rideshare and see if there's not that they've got different kind of contract requirements with the staff that they use. So that's kind of the direction we're headed. And I've been directed to work with TriMet staff to kind of help improve that. So I see hands everywhere here. I'll leave it up.
Bruce and then Alice.
Bruce, you want to come up to a microphone for us?
Have you talked to Canby about having a cat bus run down South End?
We have, and trying to remember the answer to that question. I don't remember the answer to that question.
TriMet probably
but,
doesn't like it.
yeah, there is a funding mechanism there between the TriMet Service District area and the CAT Service District area. So they won't run that route. But I think there's more to that. But
Yeah, but if
we've considered
TriMet
that.
if TriMet won't meet the needs, I mean, when there's a young man that's losing his Goodwill job, that is a handicap for that person, another handicap in his life. How about a smaller bus? Talk to the TriMet. They don't have to do the full size. Less gas.
They're talking.
more
They're
efficient.
talking a different. Some of it's bus sizes. Some of it's efficiencies with their routes. Some of it's got to do with their own employee contracts with employees. That's why they've suggested this solution that they'll continue to work with us on, which is a combination between rideshare and TriMet.
Well-
Is there some adjustments that they could make to their route and
Well,
still?
it'd be nice if they would do something down at the Max train station, so my husband and I don't on a Thursday sit there for 2 hours and not get home till 10:30 and have to go to a tavern to ask for a designated driver, which we didn't know we could get. So, it's like, okay, do you have a taxi service in this community? I don't think so. You want people to use that Amtrak station? Not if they have to walk home. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues in the transportation they need to deal with, big time.
Well, this is definitely a problem that TriMet's going to have to resolve because they know how much money they have and where they can go. But I have to say that on my street, I live on South High Street, and the TriMet bus goes by there a lot, and most of the time it's empty. And so I just see a lot of wastage in their lines, and I'm assuming they're reviewing all of this information, but why couldn't they just turn the other way and go down South End or something if there's people down there? Because they're not in my neighborhood. I mean, there's a few, but I just don't see it as being lucrative.
And a smaller bus.
Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
John, in your discussions with them, did the subject of the fact that only half of the route was canceled, the Oregon City half, the West Lynn half was kept when they reduced? It was a Circle 8 route. It made a loop through South End, through the Transit Center, over to the Willamette District, back to the Transit Center, back to South End. The only portion of it that was cut was the Oregon City part of it.
Well,
Did that come up in the conversation?
No, that didn't. But again, their point was just low ridership, lack of ridership. So that's what they're. I don't know. I didn't hear from them that they were not willing to look at it again. That's been 3 years now. So
No.
Oh, longer than that.
so they're willing to continue to work with us on that.
One of the things that I heard, and it was wrapped around light rail, was that because they didn't get all of the funding they needed for the Milwaukee-Portland light rail line, they've been taking money from operations and buses to backfill that major shortfall in funding. And with that, the report came out that said that there was a long-term forecast of a 45% additional reduction in buses. So this is the long-term projections for TriMet to try to right themselves under the conditions they're in right now. So we have problems when it comes to that, and because of that, there has been discussion about the possibility of Oregon City taking the same position it can be as in exempting themselves from the TriMet district period, and allowing it to say have just a feeder line coming into here, or then to do like what Bruce talked about, connecting up with partnering up directly with Canby. And what we have right now is marginal. and TriMet appears to be marginal. Cam Gilmore, from the head of transportation for Clackamas County, in a statement to me said that TriMet is insolvent today, and he believes that it will fall to a point within 8 to 10 years where it will change its posture as to what it is, because there's a point when they cannot pay their bills. They're over $1 billion in unfunded health care and retirement mandates right now, and they are not backfilling it. So it's getting deeper. So we've got problems, and when we look at the transportation plan, we have to really think through those things, because there are realities when you have this much debt and no funding whatsoever. They've got to do something. So it's a reality.
I don't know how much of that, we didn't get into that depth, I'll tell you that much, Paul, but it did sound like TriMet was going to work with this and look closer at South End. How's that? Let's see. You may or may not have heard the water rate issue is still out there. The City Commission made a decision at the last meeting to place one ballot measure on the title that would deal specifically with the water rate rollback. It won't necessarily deal with rate increases or deal with the long-term needs of the infrastructure. So there's not necessarily funding for that, but they will address the water rate rollback issue, which is critical to continuing with day-to-day services. So just keep that in mind. That's an important issue to the city. I think other than that, I won't press that anymore. But that'll be on the May ballot. Everything. That's it.
Okay. Any questions for John that haven't already been asked? Yes. I believe she's going to get you with a microphone there.
I thought I should save them till the end, so I have two questions that you've already gone over. With regard to the walk signal near Singer Hill Cafe, how does that signal differ from the other ones that are up near Fred Meyer, where you press the button and it allows you to walk across and it counts the seconds that you have left?
The ones at Fred Meyer are associated with a signalized intersection, so you'll never get the signal to walk across the street with the street lights being anything but stopped, right? So
right.
So that's traditional. I didn't explain that very well, but it's a traditional signal so that the vehicles have a stop and then the pedestrian gets right away. The difference between that and what we're installing on 7th Street is that it's cautionary only. So, the pedestrian has the right-of-way when they're in a crosswalk, whether there's a flashing rapid beacon or not. So this is an amber flashing rapid beacon. It won't necessarily be a red stop flashing beacon because it's not a stop, but it's really about informing the driver that something different's going on right there. And so this pedestrian still should be careful, but those beacons are really very effective. So.
Just as adding to that, I see one every night on Sunday nights when I come home Foster from over on Powell and come up Foster. There were so many accidents there. It's been on the news, Channel 2 and Channel 8. So many people were getting hit there that those lights are really bright. When those citizens push the button, the car still, it's not a red light or green light, but man, it tells you that someone's trying to cross the street, and you're not allowed to get into that crosswalk until the person makes it all the way to the other side. So it really does add some safety to it.
I believe the closest one to here is on Territorial Road in Canby, where the path comes across from Malala Logging Road. It is very effective.
How much is $20,000 for that type of light? And if there was a traditional, if that was to become a traditional light, what's the cost of an installation of a
traffic light?
Traffic light there.
Traffic signal. Traffic signals. I'm trying to think if we built one recently, but generally they're about $250,000 for a traffic signal. signalized intersection. So
And was this how did that intersection win over all the other intersections?
McLaughlin yelled a lot louder.
Well, we have heard about that intersection for a very long time. There's another one up at Barkley Hills that I've heard about for a very long time as well. So some of it's staff awareness of the problem. Some of it's our desire to want to try one out before we move on to, we know the minute we get one installed, then everybody's going to clamor for more.
I guess
and so the idea is we need to have we'd like to have a list, kind of like what we have with our speed bump criteria, whereby those maybe they have to meet a certain amount of criteria, and then there might even be some contribution from the neighborhood or from people who wanting to sponsor that, because they're a new, expensive little item that our gas taxes currently don't fund. So, I shouldn't say that. They currently are funding this, but it's not sustainable.
My first thought when you brought that up was probably because of the concerts in the park are there, and there's lots of families going there, that and the library. And,
there is a lot of public use there, and I think it's a good test case. And McLaughlin neighborhood has been, I think, probably 5 years, asking for something to be done there.
They always do.
And so it's the other thing is we've got power available there. So there's some things that just kind of make it a pretty good test case for us to try.
So you had a second question. I'm sorry.
Could I bother you to repeat what you said at the first part of the presentation? Sorry.
Okay.
Regarding how things are funded. You said some are funded and some are unfunded, and keep in mind that it's not a big stash of cash that we have. It's funded a different way. Could you repeat that?
Right. Most of the improvements that are in that plan are about increasing capacity for the traveling public, whether it be increasing the capacity for pedestrians to walk or bicyclists to bike or vehicles to drive. Most of the improvements that are completed in the city that are capacity kinds of things are funded through new development. Either the development is conditioned to build them, so that would be one of those things that would, let's say Walmart, for instance. Walmart develops, they're going to get a long list of conditions, some of which are going to be signal upgrades, widening, turn lanes, interconnectivity of signals. There's a long list for a developer like Walmart to have to meet. So some of those get funded that way. Some of them get funded through the transportation system development charges that they're charged. So when you come in to build a house, you pay a transportation system development charge, and that does go into a bank. But that bank right now is not very full because we've spent it on other projects, and so there's reasons why that bank's not full. But so as those developments happen and as those developers pay those, that's when that bank starts to get filled, and that's how we can fund some of these other projects.
So the fees that get paid to help the bank account, they're not specifically set aside for that one place where that development is happening?
True. Often they are. For instance, when Clackamas County built their red soils property, we set that money aside for transportation improvements along Beaver Creek Road, Malala, those areas. But a single-family residence that happens in South End is going to pay. It's going to go into that fund, whether they spend it in South End or spend it in Park Place. It's part of the same. We don't have different funds for neighborhoods.
Same thing for the Walmart. If they pay X dollars, it should go here, or most of it will go here, but there's nothing that tracks it that says that's where the money went.
That's true.
Okay.
I would say the bigger developments is a little more likely.
Right.
We have a special line item for the county development, but that's probably the biggest development we've seen in years. Probably since we started. I don't remember if the community college, if we were charging SDCs when the community college developed, but the county red soils development was big enough to where we decided, well, let's kind of make sure we allocate that funding for the corridors that really need it.
How long have SDCs been in Houston City?
You probably don't remember, do you, Laura? I'll have to get back to you on that one, Tom. I've forgotten.
I know at least 10 years because I heard about it when I first
I want to
moved
say
here.
the 90s, but there's specific language on that I can't remember.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Right, is that it for John? Okay.
Well,
Sorry?
that's a question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a couple of things. One is, I guess, for Kenema, about the flashing light concept that John talked about. I believe in Beaverton, on the Beaverton-Hillsdale Highway, Highway 8, they have a light like that that goes across 6 lanes of traffic. They have a little island they built for the halfwayers.
Yeah.
But that seems to me that if the state's already put them on to cross highways, that it's a real good concept for like 3rd or 4th across 99. I'm not sure if it's on the high. I mean, I drive around over there and I get lost all the time, but it's a fairly major road. I'm pretty sure it's Highway 8 that it goes across. So that's just a concept for you guys. And then I lost the other one, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Mike?
It's just real topical because it's something that I live on 99 and I work on 99 in 2 different neighborhoods, but I love the library and I understand the need for it there as well. I just feel that I have to speak to my neighborhoods because that's why we're here. And in Kenema, Kenema is a very difficult area. It's a lot like Linton, although it doesn't have quite as much on both sides of the tracks. The pedestrian and bike paths are across the street from where most of the residents are. So even though there aren't neighbors on both sides, primarily they're on away from the riverside, there's a lot of crossing that needs to be done on that road, and it's very difficult for children to cross there as well, or bike riders or pedestrians. And then where I work is on 99, and this is my month. This is my every other. Actually, I brought it up last month too, but
Speed signs.
Yep.
Yep.
99, there has been need there. It has been a car hit my neighbor's building on the corner, and there was a 3-car wreck on New Year's. There was a natural gas pipe explosion prior to that. And the cars that drive through the 25-mile-an-hour zone do not drive 25 miles an hour through the tunnel. It's 25 miles an hour prior to the tunnel coming down, and then it's 25 miles an hour all the way through the corner along the river. And if we want to have a traffic calming and a comfortable downtown like they do at Nato Parkway and other urban areas, we have to slow down traffic to at least the designated speed zones. And I think that the signs that they bought, Kenema neighborhood bought their own 25 mile an hour, but your traveling speed sign. I believe they're $6,000. I think is what I heard McLaughlin paid for one of theirs. And so excuse me,
We didn't purchase one.
I heard that McLaughlin neighbor did purchase one.
We requested to get some funding for it, but we didn't succeed.
Okay, so were those are city owned?
Yes.
And I believe that are they like 6,000?
Yeah, John.
Okay, and so I don't know. I just feel like that corner's brutal, and really coming through on Main Street as cars try to race the yellow to get up through the tunnel. It becomes kind of an acceleration event at every yellow light, and then now that the bridge is open, we have we have an express lane that comes through the tunnel and hits railroad, and they don't drive at designated speeds through there to make the bridge crossing now. It's just a very congested area, and it's a red line on the map, so it is a high density area. And there seems to be very little to zero patrolling of it, and very little attention to it. And I just bring it up because I've been doing this for the last 2 years.
So, Mike, just so you know, I don't have the word yet. So we're willing to put our portable speed limit sign down near Railroad Avenue and 99E if we can get ODOT's authorization and put it in our rotation of speed, just like we do in other neighborhoods where we're moving those speed limit signs around town, trying to keep them effective and something new. And we're willing to put it there if we can get ODOT's approval. So we're working on that. My staff, Kevin Hanks, who you know, has been asked to pursue that with ODOT. And whether they'll give us permission or not, I don't know, but we're going to try.
John, is there any history on the Lynn Avenue speed signs right on the corner there? They seem to be very effective. When you're coming, they just, when you come down there, you're seeing the light and how fast you're going, and then you nosedive down.
We're all speeders a little bit.
Yeah, no, they're effective.
It seems like it's working. That could really be effective at coming down 99, just like that, because there's more incidents of travel on 99 than there is on Lynn, and probably a higher rate of speed too.
Keep in mind, 99 is not ours, but we will continue to work to communicate with ODOT.
An example of officer presence was this morning at 8:08 a.m. An officer was at the light on Main Street heading towards southbound 99. And the motorist in front of me was doing about 35 and would have run the light had that officer not been sitting there. But she dipped and dipped and dipped.
I get it, John. I know ODOT is the factor, or the biggest factor. And this kind of came from ODOT employees. ODOT really doesn't like to have traffic calming. They have also kind of a need to have flow. And when they have congestion on their roads, this may not be factual, but this came from an employee, that they do have an overall goal of having traffic flow and moving, and that's what freeways and highways and byways are for. And so they're reluctant to want to slow down. It takes in Linton, it took a kid to die, and then they finally did some work in Linton. And so it takes a big event for them to move on that. They tend to frown on the things that we're talking about. They tend to frown on those. I just say that because I've heard that, and it seems to be the case, because I do call ODOT as well and ask for that stuff there.
Well, that's good. That's good, because
we're going to kill somebody first.
We'll have more I think more results if it's somebody besides Public Works.
We have somebody back here.
I'm trying to get to him.
No. John, they had a sign like, is that, what is it? Jackson and Lynn and 5th on Washington between 8th and 10th. And it was in a steel pole set in the ground with a, whatever happened to that?
It got run over.
Yeah, somebody hit it.
You didn't sue to get a new one?
They do tend to get hit from time to time, and no, you don't need to. But that's also one of the temporary locations where we move them. We've got locations around town, so we can just pull the signpost and move it to a different location.
I didn't know you thought it was permanent. It was there for so long.
No.
They forget about them.
No.
Oh, they don't.
Thanks, John.
The neighborhoods don't let them forget about it.
Okay, I think that's it for Ask One More PW.
Thank you for excusing me.
One comment?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Whoever it was who decided to move the no left turn when you're coming into Oregon City on the Arch Bridge, so they've moved it onto the bridge. You can see it now. People actually pay attention to it, and people are not turning left off of the bridge onto Main. Good job.
Except this afternoon they did.
Yeah, and the other day too.
What are you doing over on that? What are you doing over on that other side of the bridge?
Fellow in front of me this afternoon did.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was ODOT, by the way.
That was a half-hour presentation for Port John with questions. Okay, let's move right along. Let's go into approval of the minutes. Both the vice chair and secretary who were elected in December are not here, so I guess I'll just ask at this point. I'll take that task on of doing the approval of the minutes. There is a change I see on a spelling of somebody's name. I noticed under guest there's David Alice Perdue. It's actually Prideaux. It's R-I-D-E-A-U-X. It's a French kind of spelling. So it's
Which minutes are those?
Dave, this was, excuse me, let's take them one at a time. This is for January 7th. I know we had changes to it, so we didn't approve it last meeting.
Purdue, and Purdue should
Instead
be
of Purdue, it's Prideaux. P-R-I-D-E-A-U-X. And even I may have that just a little wrong, but it's like that. Are there any other changes to the January 7th meeting minutes? Can I have a motion to approve these?
Approval.
And second? Okay. Want to do the roll call then, Katie?
I will. Sorry, I just am slow on the gun here. Okay, Michael Berman.
Here?
Approve or
Oh,
not approve?
It's good to know you haven't left.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck. Kathy Hogan.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Abstain.
Debbie DeRusha. Damon Mabey.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Diane McKnight.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Todd Last.
Yes.
Okay, passes
Okay.
with one abstention.
And I just have one correction.
On what, the January 7th or February?
February.
Oh.
We're moving on.
Okay, well, give me a chance to get to February. February 4th minutes. Do I hear any changes?
Yes. On page 3, it's for Kathy, because she's got a question mark there. I had a good. So I believe I said something about having. I had a good.
Had good, oh, is that supposed to be
Q&A.
an idea?
Q&A.
Q&A.
What she said.
Yeah, question and answer should have been.
So it should have been a Q.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Any other changes to these minutes?
Approval.
Okay.
Second.
Wait. Who said Who said move? Damon. Okay, sorry.
Damon likes to move.
If it's
Yeah.
fast,
He makes
it's
more
me.
movements.
And who's second? Steve. Okay, Michael Berman.
Aye.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck. Kathy Hogan.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Abstain.
Debbie DeRusha. Damon Mabey.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Diane McKnight.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Todd Last.
Abstain.
So 2 abstentions, and it passes.
Okay. What I meant to say is Damon moves things quite quickly. That'd be here planning. Thank you, Damon, for doing that. New business discussions. Neighborhood Association representative credentials. Is that going to be you, Katie?
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to be able to look these over, and it's up to you if you accept these and accept the credentials and whatever you want to do with those. I did also want to note that I did receive Tower Vista's Todd Last and also Steve Thames this evening, so I have a copy of those if you want to review that as well.
So do you have all of the ones that you need at this point?
I do not.
Because we want to remind everyone that next month for elections, you do need to have your credentials with Katie so that they can be verified. And we've been saying that for 3 or 4 months now. So we really want to make sure that everyone, if you want to be able to vote next month, must have your credentials in.
So what does
One
the
second.
credential contain? Does it have to be a written thing or what?
I think what we had said was that something somewhere in your own neighborhood bylaws that says whether it's an appointment by them or if you were voted in by somebody, just something as basic as that from your chair or whoever it might be. For instance, in Park Place, the chair, vice chair, those are automatically by our rules, bylaws get to be on the CIC, so there's no election necessary. Some get appointed, like in Kenema. So it depends on your particular bylaws.
And usually they're in your minutes.
Right.
And
You
I
got a
do
copy.
have an email from Diane for the 2 of you, and that's in
That's
this
verifiable.
packet.
Enough, huh?
Well, that's in this packet. It's up to the CIC to take that as if, that's their official way of, that's up to you guys if you want to accept that as the official document saying
And I
that
would
that's
think
who
an
they
email
are.
that says that you're verified
But they're
by the
listed
chair,
here
yeah.
if you want to view them.
Okay. Paul, you had your...
Yeah, we have, I would defer to Bob first.
Okay, Bob.
Which neighborhood is Tony from?
Berkeley Hills.
Berkeley Hills. yeah.
Okay, that documentation of his didn't say that he had been appointed as a representative of the CIC, and there is also nothing in their bylaws that explains how that appointment is made, so I think that needs to be clarified. It only indicated that he had been voted in as the chairman.
So possibly self-appointed is what you're saying. But it doesn't clarify in their bylaws whether that's the appropriate manner for them to become the representative.
Yeah, their bylaws don't address it at all.
And Tony hasn't been here for the last couple of meetings. How long was he excused for?
It was last meeting and this meeting.
Okay.
We'll be back on March 12th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in the meantime, maybe we can send an email to him if you have that, Katie, and ask for something that clarifies. Is that possible?
Well, okay, so this is my question. It's not, this is up to you guys to accept these or not accept these, because one person has stated that they didn't accept it and they don't believe that it's in their bylaws and stuff. So I'm wondering if we need to vote on these as being accepted or not accepted. It's not my responsibility to say if these people are, because of the criteria they've provided, are accepted or not accepted.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, well, moderator.
I would also, there was also a organizing meeting that was held for an area that has now been, the CIC has been representing, which is effectively downtown and the areas to the north and out on both sides, including a lot of residential areas. And those people apparently have voted in officers and designated themselves those that they would like to attend our CIC. And I think we ought to be aware of that, because this is a train coming down the tracks for, in effect, a new neighborhood association to come before us. And in the past, we've had organizing areas which were brought in just by going out and them having an organizing meeting and having voted in officers. And I'm trying to identify what there are in differences between these areas and this area now that has just gone through a similar type of organizational type meeting and elections.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but first off, all the ones that were reorganized were already recognized by the city government, by the city council, so city commission. So any new one would probably have to go before city commission first, present the credentials of who they are, what they've organized, what residents that they actually represent. So it's not a business organization, but an actual residential one. I think that has to go before city commission, because they're the ones who do those charters that we've all seen. I mean, we all have, I think all the neighborhoods have that kind of a charter thing that the city, not thing, but a certification by the city. So Damon first. To Marge? Okay, Marge. Sorry.
Speak to that.
Thank you, Marge.
Could you use the mic, please? Sorry.
I'm the secretary for that neighborhood association, and we did meet. We did election of officers. We approved. We adopted.
You're good. He's just messing with the volume.
No, it's just really loud.
We adopted bylaws, and then I met with Katie today, and we are going to supply, in addition to the information we supplied her, a letter of request. And the process is then it will go to the city manager and then be presented to the city commission at a work session. And then if they approve it, then it will we will get a resolution from the attorney, and then we will be organized and recognized as a neighborhood association.
Okay, thanks, Marge. Is that, do you live in that actual area?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. Brian Boyce, who is a...
Sorry, use the mic. Sorry, because we won't get it on the recording.
Can you identify yourself for the minutes?
Okay, I'm Margie Hughes, and Brian Boyce, who is a resident of that neighborhood association, was elected as chair. I was elected as acting secretary, until we get through this process for them. And then our plan, or their plan, I should say, is to finish the slate and their members at large. We did elect a member at large, but no one wanted to take that position.
And
So
that's
I'm a non-voting member.
And that's understandable. I just knew that in most neighborhood association bylaws that we saw when we were doing reviews that officers needed to be from residents in that area. So you're just a...
I'm just a non-voter.
Right, okay. Just was wondering. So that'll go, I'm sure that they won't be involved in our elections coming up because that process may take a while and they'd be brand new, probably even if the city did that process.
Amber asked a question. We've petitioned the city to be called Two Rivers Neighborhood Association.
Okay. Right. So let's take it back then to the credentials that you were asking about that question. And
Yeah, and sorry, is there a question on the table, or I actually have something to say too?
please go ahead.
Okay, so I do have Berkeley Hills bylaws right here, and Tony was elected as the chair of Berkeley Hills, and in here it says that he's also serving as on the steering committee, which I don't believe they currently have a steering committee because they don't have
Enough people.
enough interest in the officer positions and in the steering committee positions, but he can be elected or delegated to certain committees and then also appointed to special projects or committees. So I believe this would fall under that, but that's my personal interpretation, not your interpretation of this. So.
Does anyone have a discussion on that, or should we accept that? Yes, Alice.
I just think it should be more formal than that. And we're making some assumptions here. If he has the authority to appoint himself, then he should say so in writing.
Okay, so and are we generalizing this? Or are we saying this particular one? Because there are other people who have minutes as their represent. Are you wanting an official letter from each neighborhood? Because we never set actual criteria saying we want a letter
credentials that
from.
say how somebody, whether they were appointed or they elected or they, like as I said, Park Place, they assume that position because of the fact of their title. It's actually written into our bylaws.
I don't think it's fair to make us read their bylaws to figure out if they're legitimate or not. I think they should send us a letter and say, yes, here's who we appointed, and we have the authority in our bylaws, and we'll take that as gospel.
Which could be easy enough for Tony to say, I as chair, I appoint myself. But
Sure.
So then are we going to require a letter from all of the neighborhood associations?
Or an email. I don't think it has to be super fancy. It
Okay.
just has to be legitimate.
Okay.
Damon.
Yeah, and unfortunately Amy isn't here, but that's exactly how she credentialed herself, which I think is wholly appropriate. As the chair, I am appointing myself as a CIC rep. Period. Email. Done. It just needs to be just that simple. I mean, fancy letterheads and all that new, but it does need to say, appointed or am CIC rep for the neighborhood. I mean, those 5 words, CIC rep for blah, blah, neighborhood, should be what it is.
And I think the reason we did that,
I'm everything,
Damon, I think the reason we also did that at the time, I'm not sure, I think Alice or yourself, somebody said, okay, we forgive the past indiscretions of missing meetings, but as of the date of when when you're appointed, that's when we were going to start watching attendance records. Was that not correct?
Well, it was, basically.
Yeah. So wanted to get that in.
And for the purposes of getting past the April elections, we were going to grant everybody
amnesty,
a pardon
so to speak.
on any past discretions.
Special dispensation.
So do you have most of them? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're only missing.
Well, I'm going to say that Hazel Groves is minutes, not an official letter, or not any kind of letter
Okay.
stating that they are, it's the
representatives.
minutes, and same as Tony's. And I'm going to say that what I received from Todd's tonight was a letter, but it's saying that they were appointed as the co-chair, and secretary of the neighborhood association, not that
As a
they are the
representative.
representatives.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you're going to get specific, then we need to have it consistent with all of the. And I know that with, and I don't know how this works with Amber's, but I know for Amber Holbeck, hers again is minutes, and in the minutes it's saying we are appointing Amber as the temporary.
Which is fine. If the minutes say
Yeah.
CIC rep
Because
for...
there are-
Okay, so hers is
That's-
probably separate than the others. So we'll just need to get clarifying letters.
Hers
for,
is kind of a
No, well,
monarchy.
I think, well, Hazel Grove should be all right because it's okay. That's how we were.
Minutes are officially the
The-
record of what went on in the
Yeah, it went on in the meeting. It's
Right.
and
So
you-
what do your? Let me see what your minutes.
And I think you need to probably send email to the South End so that they can go ahead and find their minutes and.
Well,
send
as
it.
Katie indicated, she's not totally responsible for that. Maybe it's our secretary. I'll need to contact Amy and say, Amy, would you ask for this for them? Because the secretary of that is their role is to
Yeah.
require for those. So I'll ask Amy in an email this week of the ones that have not done. Just, again, the only reason we're doing this tonight is so there's no questions next month. So there's a few other clarifications we're going to make tonight regarding next month. So that's all we're doing right now. So.
Katie, are you receiving minutes on most of the meetings?
From the neighborhood associations, no. I have received some, but I haven't received all
Well, you got mine,
minutes.
one of mine. Just I scanned it in.
So.
So is that it for that one, Katie? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question. The list under attachments, does that mean you have them? Because Hillendale's here, do you have them?
They're here for you guys to review. They were sent out with the packet with the agenda. You can click on the links. They're also on our website right now with the agenda. You can click on those links and view what I have, and then you can determine if that is acceptable or not. That's what I was trying to get at tonight. It's not my responsibility to determine if that's acceptable or not. It's for you.
But I guess my point is the list that's here. I don't personally know if it's all inclusive of all of the neighborhoods.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I do not have. I'm missing South End Neighborhood Association, and now the Barkley Hills has been called into question. I'll need to get that written in a letter, and then I'll probably need to get a little bit more clarification on Tower Vistas.
And Caulfield.
Right.
And I don't have anything from Caulfield.
Bob LaSalle?
Tony's was the only one, I looked through all of these, and Tony's
figured
was
you
the
would.
only one that, in my opinion, was not specific enough. All the rest of them that are listed here
Yeah.
look perfectly fine to me.
And if that's what the CIC as a group wants to accept, that's perfectly
agree.
fine.
I agree.
I mean, if I hear no other comments to the contrary, then I believe that we all agree that what's there is fine.
You just need some yet.
Yes, just need some. And again, we hate to be this specific, but after what we've been through, I think we need to make sure we follow correct procedures, or at least implement procedures. That'll help us all.
So I just want to, sorry, one more clarifying thing. So I do know that South End Neighborhood Association is working on getting us something, but just to not go ahead and assume that they're going to be getting something now, whose responsibility is it going to be to follow up with South End?
I will ask Amy.
Okay.
I will
then,
email Amy.
Okay. And then obviously Todd's here tonight, so he'll know that we can
Right.
clarify that. And then also with Tony, who's going to be sending Tony something to let him know. Amy will be doing that as well.
Okay.
That we would. I'm asking. I'm not
Yes,
telling.
sorry.
I'm not directing anything.
No,
I'm just
I
trying to
understand.
clarify
I
here.
understand.
Okay.
So repeat for me one more time. Amy, I'm going to ask her about
Barkley Hills,
Barkley Hills,
South End,
okay,
And Caulfield.
and then Caulfield.
South End, and now did I not hear originally a month or so ago that Caulfield had dropped out or resigned?
They
Or was that
have
just
not
the
sent
chair?
another representative. It does not necessarily mean that they've completely resigned from the CIC.
Okay, because I thought we
I
had
don't
said
know
that
the
they
answer to that. That's up
they
to them.
resigned from it, so I'm not sure who you would contact, but I'll ask Amy to do so.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there?
Okay, moving forward, if there's no other questions, 6B is going to go along pretty much with the nominating committee. I think Amy, who's on the nominating committee? I think Amy was the chair of it. Is that correct?
No.
Who's on that nominating committee?
Kathy, me, and Paul are
Okay.
the three that are still here.
So they're on it, and I'll let.
Actually, 6B is separate from the nominating committee. The nominating committee is on here separately.
Right,
And
but
the
I'm
act-
saying it's going to tie together in some way. I was just going to point that out.
Okay.
On this 6B, I've got a question, and that
And I've
is-
got some comments about it. Do you want me to
Okay.
go first, or?
Okay.
Okay.
Go for it.
Number one is, I think we need to clarify now. I asked Katie during that presentation to get the bylaws and to read the bylaws here, the brief part having to do with elections. And I think we really need to be really clear this month about voting procedures as we understand them. And if we don't really understand them, we want to apply them fairly and equally so we enforce them correctly. And for instance, we're all pretty close-knit. We've been working together for quite a while. And we've seen the impact of public voting where you raise your hand and it really makes some people uncomfortable. I'm not sure who all is going to be nominated, but if there's a nominating committee where there can be a small ballot, I think for my own personal taste after seeing what's happened, and I think for several of you, we don't raise hands to elect the commissioner or planning commission or the mayor, and I think that's one of those things in here that I believe the bylaws committee for the CIC is looking at changing. And I'm going to suggest to you tonight and that for discussion that we do have that as a ballot. So that way also, Katie, and there's a slip of paper that...
We can't.
Pardon?
Articles
We
8,
can make
Section 5.
we can make an abstention to that rule because...
Well, I won't.
But, well, let me finish.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Damon. There's some things that just... We saw the impact last time. It caused so much commotion. People's feelings were hurt. And I don't know of any other organization where they do that. And again, when you're elected any officers, usually it's by a small ballot. But, I mean, it may only be one person running for the offices, but still the impact is there. So I wanted to open that up for conversation. But the big thing I want to read here, what Damon was just referring to, the following procedures, this is Section 5 of Article 8. It goes through all the elections and who can vote. The following procedures will not be allowed. Any vote by proxy, any absentee vote, any vote by mail, or any secret ballot of the members. To me, that's not a secret ballot. It's a private ballot or privacy of vote. But secret ballot, to me, I'm not quite sure why they used the word secret when this was originally put together. But I'm going to open that up because you can, I'm not sure what the word is, but you can abstain from a bylaw, or all people can vote to say, let's drop that or let's change it for this election. So I want to open that up for a conversation. It's in their bylaws, but again, that particular one, just to me, it may cause more commotion than is necessary. So open it up. Paul.
First of all, I wouldn't mind seeing this happen, but I would love to hear why Damon, first of all, has his objections, because I think he's been around it
Yeah, I
a
agree.
lot.
I just wanted to finish my train of thought there.
Well, first off, there's 25 of us here, and we need to know what issues people do or don't have. A secret ballot, private ballot, whatever, it is very specific why it's a secret ballot, because the only way it could not be a secret ballot is if your name's on it. And these all become public record. So one way or another, everybody's going to know how you vote. So you might as well just raise your hand and deal with it. Just like when you raise your hand and get for people to be nominated, yeah, there can be chaos, but it's you have to deal with it, and you get people talking about rigged elections and missing, that isn't my marks and all that other stuff that happens with hanging chads, and it's just, it's really hard to say that the vote was rigged or that there was an error when there's 14 hands up for one person and 11 hands up for another person.
Right, it's just that I think the slip of paper gives proof. Tom was up first here.
I like the method that the City Commission has in the past used and continues to use, and obviously being a large public body who is under scrutiny at all times, they have not what is a secret ballot, but they used to turn the ballots over to the city recorder. She would tally them. She knew who was voting on which. They have gone electronic now. They still don't know how each other is voting until the vote shows up, and it shows up on that screen up there.
And that's kind of what I
So
was...
it's a public vote, but it's not a show of hands and all of this other stuff. It is an open vote, and I think we could achieve it, not necessarily using the electronics, but filling out a sheet of paper, folding it, passing it over to Katie. She reveals who voted and how they voted. It's a tally, and I think we can do that effectively.
Alice is next. Then to you, Mike. Alice, go ahead. You're next.
Well, I was curious when Damon was speaking, and also, Tom, your comments. I'm not certain that I understand what the areas of contention that you're referring to are, but I think that we could trust Katie and possibly John Lewis as two independent people to keep track of the ballots. It did create a lot of hard feelings last time when people saw who voted for whom, because we're all friends here, and it appears like you're picking a favorite. And I personally, since I have been nominated and do plan to run, I don't want to know who's voting against me. I really don't. I want to know if I win or lose, and hopefully then I can do a good job, but I don't want to know who said no to me and voted for my friend instead.
Okay. Again, we don't even know who's all nominated yet. This is just conjecture before the fact of the nominating committee. Mike?
I think everybody touched on what I was speaking of. I do believe that the hands up was awkward at best. But I do think, on the other hand, that the vote should be done to where probably by the end of the night, maybe the names probably, they are public records, so maybe they should come out. Maybe not announced, but they could be in the minutes. And, but I absolutely think that this was it was very awkward to watch, and it didn't seem very neighborly when it happened.
And do you agree that having Katie
Yes.
handle or Katie or John or Katie handling the pieces of paper where she can actually keep those as a record?
Yep, third party.
Kathy Hogan, you're up next.
I'm in agreement. I believe there was some contention, and I would like to be able to leave a room, and not the same way we did the last time this happened. I think the ballot is a better way.
Okay, does someone, if there's no more discussion, does someone want to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
That we suspend that particular part of that bylaw, the section regarding the secret ballot, to move to a private or secure ballot?
I don't wish to make that adjustment because I don't think it is necessary. I would like to make a motion that we have printed ballots to which we sign or affix our name, pass them to the recorder to tally the votes. Keep those ballots as a public record.
I second it.
But we don't need to declare who voted for who.
Okay.
I second.
That's acceptable. That's still...
Yeah. And I second.
Okay, Katie, do you want to, is there any discussion? Katie, do you want to call a roll call on that one?
Second, sorry.
Sorry. Before we proceed, well, let's do that.
Okay, so Michael Berman,
Yes.
Paul Edgar,
Yes.
Amber Holbeck, Kathy Hogan,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
I agree.
Debbie DeRusha, Damon Mabey,
No.
Alice Watts,
Yes.
Bob LaSalle,
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek,
Yes.
Diane McKnight,
I'll abstain.
Eileen Olson,
Yes.
Todd Last.
Yes.
So it passes, one abstention and one no.
Are there any other questions regarding that section, Section 5 of Article 8? The following procedures will not be allowed. Any vote by proxy, any absentee vote, any vote by mail, or, that includes phone.
I would like to clarify the phone, and I don't necessarily mean phone in to vote. What I mean is basically for this meeting and any meeting, is someone, any participant of the CIC allowed to phone in and participate in the meeting. And during that meeting, there are votes that take place. For example, voting on the minutes.
Yep.
There are other votes. And could take place at next month's meeting and vote on the elections. Is that going to be allowed or not allowed? And I would like that clarified if someone could, please. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Do we hear discussion on that? Bob?
I feel uncomfortable with somebody voting by telephone because I may not recognize that voice. I may not know who's on the other end of that line. And I just don't feel right about it.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes.
Tom?
I have watched that process repeatedly at the city commission meetings, and a couple of things that I observe as that's proceeding. An example would be tonight, the presentation that was made by Laura. It is very difficult for someone sitting on something other than a picture phone to observe what is going on in this room. And I have seen the difficulties that that creates at the city commission level, and I don't think we ought to be creating those kinds of issues for ourselves or our members. There are certainly times when all of us are unable to attend. We have the opportunity to officially be excused, and we have some bylaws that indicate how often that can occur. I think we should not be using that level of communication simply because it limits the ability to participate fully in the affairs of this organization.
I'm sorry, I want to clarify just one thing. Someone can participate by phone and still see what's going on in the meeting because you can view this instantaneously. You can be logged on to our website watching the video as it's happening.
You can if you have internet access where you are.
Very true.
And I have missed meetings and been in locations where I could have telephoned, but I did not have internet access. And so it does create a problem for those of us who perhaps are visiting family in another country or a different part of the world, and
or bedridden.
It just doesn't seem to work.
Well, I don't want to extrapolate on that too much, but most laptops do have cameras, so it conceivably wouldn't be that hard to do that. But I don't think we want to go down that road. It'd be really pretty easy to set a laptop up and see somebody's face on the monitor nowadays.
Sorry, I just want to say one more thing, and I honestly don't care either way. I just want to caution that whatever is decided, know that this is moving forward until another decision is made, and so that's for any future meeting, not just the coming up meeting. So I want this to be not just because of the elections, but any future meeting.
But that's going to be covered in the CIC bylaws review. When
yes, until that's taking place.
Right.
But I just want to open that up for everyone to understand. Okay.
I see that Stephen, Damon, I'm not sure who was up first, but Damon?
I think Amber might be before me, but I guess my simple response is we don't decide anything legislative here. Mm-hmm. If you can't be here, oh well. And if it's really important, get a hold of your steering committee and have them do a special appointment letter for an alternate to be here.
Sounds good.
It's just not that important that you be here. And it's, on listening on a phone and voting. There's 25 votes. One isn't going to change things. Well, I don't know. Maybe last year it would have, but hopefully it won't. Because you can't vote if you can't turn in your little slip of paper. So
this is not quasi-judicial.
I think.
Steve, did you withdraw what's your
I
comments?
think, Steve, I mean,
I agree.
I'm sorry, Amber.
Honestly, my comment is pretty similar in that we allow our city commissioners to vote remotely, and for our CIC elections, I think we're complicating things severely. So.
Thank you. I have a feeling you want to talk.
I did. Well, actually, like you say, like Damien says, what we say sometimes doesn't matter.
Just be here if you want to vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the commission is doing something more.
They're passing laws. It's a
And Damon
different-
said it right. I mean,
It's good.
nothing we do is
We're
that
thinking pretty
critical
highly of
important.
ourselves.
It's not quasi-judicial, as I'm getting used to that term. Okay, does someone want to, do we need a motion to say that we're not going to allow that, or do we just?
It already says it.
Well,
It says it in the bylaws, but it
I-
doesn't specifically mention phone.
I'm sorry, I would like to make it clear, so
Yes.
I would like to have some sort of, yeah, thanks.
Damon.
I move that we don't accept any information, votes, attendance for people who are not physically present in the room while meetings are occurring.
I'll second that.
Okay. I think we're going to have a roll call.
Yes. Michael Berman?
Yes.
Paul Edgar?
Yes.
Amber Holbeck?
Aye.
Kathy Hogan?
Yes.
Tom O'Brien?
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Is that, okay. Debbie DeRusha? Damon Mabey?
Yes.
Alice Watts?
Yes.
Bob LaSalle?
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek?
Yes.
Diane McKnight?
Yes.
Eileen Olson?
Yes.
Todd Last?
Yes.
And that passes. Thank you, guys.
So before we move on, is there any other questions that we haven't clarified about April's elections? Okay. All right, let's move right on to 7A, the nominating committee. And Amy's not here, and I believe she was the chair, so who is going to speak on behalf of the nominating committee?
Damon.
Damon is? Damon. Does he leave?
is he leaving?
Oh, there he is.
All right. The nominating committee, in the form of me, contacted everybody, and we got the following nominations. Some people have declined, but they declined to me. I want to give them the opportunity to either not decline or to decline in front of everyone else. So, first off, Tom, you are nominated. Do you wish to accept that nomination?
I decline that.
All right. Alice, you were nominated. Do you wish to accept that nomination?
I accept.
Steve is not here. He verbally declined to me, but he will be. I will have that opportunity in April before the final one.
You did talk to Steve?
Yes.
Because I tried to call him tonight by his phone,
I
and
did it via email.
it was disconnected, and I've tried to email him. Okay.
Vice chair. We have two people nominated. Steve was at our meeting of the nominating committee, and he did state that he is accepting his nomination. Michael, do you wish to accept your nomination as vice chair?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay. And last, Amy is not here, but at our meeting of the nominating committee where she knew she was nominated, she did accept it. So, we have a slate currently. Is there any other nominations for any other are there any other nominations for the three positions from anyone else?
How about Damon for secretary?
I decline.
I'd like to make a clarification, Damon. You're accepting nominations from the floor at this time.
Yes.
Will we be accepting nominations from the floor on the actual election night?
There will be an opportunity prior to the vote in April.
So if
for
a ballot,
nomination.
if a small ballot is made, then we need to have a spot for
Write-in.
blank spot for write-in.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
And Damien, as a
Damien?
teacher, you do quite well with your
And they
presentation.
even got post-it note these things, so we
Yeah,
can use
you
them
did
for-
very well.
Are there any questions regarding the nominations? Yes.
I trust that our nominees will get a chance to say something that night
I think
about
they-
why
I
we
think
should
they'll-
elect
wanna
them.
do, Al?
I suggested that they do it tonight, something as well as that night.
Excellent.
Because that way, for those who aren't here tonight, we can all hear and think about it, and those that evening can say something.
My preference would be they all speak that night because they'll all be there instead of we hear Alice twice and we hear Michael twice because they'll have to repeat everything. And these
They might
meetings
think of
go
something
way
different,
too
but-
long to begin with.
Yeah, you're right.
Nothing personal to either of you, but it's almost 9 and we're only
Did you
on
know
5C.
Did you know I had a
7A.
5-minute
7A.
presentation?
We're almost to the end without ASCO CP at the end. Is that okay with Alice and Amy? Amy, is that okay? Or Mike? Okay, so come prepared with really good speeches. Okay, so that's it for the nominating committee. No other questions? How about land use committee, 7B?
Nothing is happening.
Okay, Paul, has there been, since we have had changes to the representatives that were on the land use committee, have we gone about a process to add to the land use committee? I mean, who's currently on it?
We talked about this at the last
Did
meeting.
we?
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, and that's been we've
Okay, I wasn't quite sure if there was anything else that changed on that. Okay, then nothing on there. Let's go right to the bylaws template, neighborhood bylaw template committee. And Katie?
Sorry, it's not working. Okay. So I just wanted to, I apologize that to both the people on the committee and to the CIC that I'm not bringing a final draft to you today or this evening. What I am bringing to you, though, is more of a final draft than what we had when I met with the committee members. But there are still some questions remaining, and I'm trying to work with city staff and with the city attorney's office to get those questions answered. And then hopefully at the next meeting, I will have a final draft for everyone to review.
And are you going to call the bylaws committee together again so we can see what the changes are that we came down to?
Does the bylaws committee feel that's necessary, or do you want to just, since we're down to just a couple of questions, you want to just talk about it at the next meeting in front of everyone, or?
We could. But
Yeah, let's wait.
Okay, well, you're not on the neighborhood association bylaw. That's Tom and Alice.
Let's end this meeting.
Well, I know. It's not discussing now, but I was asking if Alice and Tom and Kathy want to meet with her.
I'd rather not do it in this room because it takes too long. It just
Right.
seems
There was a
like
lot of
it's-
questions we had about.
And actually, I would like them given to everybody way before.
Because we had a lot
2
of
days
questions.
before the meeting or something.
We had a
It would
lot
be
of
nice
questions.
that they had a week to really look at it.
Okay, so what's currently there shows the questions that we currently have up in the air.
Since it has been delayed already, I think it would be appropriate for the initial bylaws committee, the study committee, to meet with you once more before sending the draft out to everyone. But I would like to see the draft go out to everyone in advance of the meeting.
After we meet to discuss the changes.
After
Sure.
we've reviewed those changes.
Sure, that sounds good.
There
Thank
were,
you.
when we met last time, there was a few changes the city had suggested. We explained our reasoning behind them. They were going to take them back, and we just want the opportunity to look at them before they say this is the way they are.
I don't
What?
say this is the way they are. Sorry.
Okay, with that being done, the CIC bylaws review committee.
There might not be a report since
That would
they're
be
not
Bob
meeting.
LaSalle. He's got a small report.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can find it. Caught me off guard. That happened so fast.
When we start moving, we move.
Yes. Okay. The Bylaws Committee is going to meet March 12th at the Red Community Building in Park Place neighborhood. That was the only one that I had available. If somebody finds a more central location, that would be welcome. And I've suggested that we meet 3 or 4 times for a couple hours apiece to avoid brain fade, because I know that the CIC Bylaws Template Committee worked till very, very late hours to get theirs put together, and I don't want to do that.
The wine helped. I'm just kidding.
And it's interesting that the building we're meeting in does not have an address. It's in the low-income family housing area in Park Place, and each street has one address, and all the little houses on that street are the same number.
It's on Longview
So-
Street. Off.
It's on Longview.
The 200
Just-
block of Longview.
Yeah, 200 block of Longview, which is just off of Holcomb Boulevard, so.
Which could either be the fire station, or it could be the Red Community Building, or...
And I'm giving maps to all the people that are on the committee.
Can you
so.
refresh everybody's memory of who's on the committee?
That would be me, Alice Watts, Amy Wilhite, Mike Berman, Steve Anderson, and Todd Last.
Good group of people. Good. Okay. Don't lose the key. Okay, next we move into roundtable. Let's start with Damon.
Pass. I'm setting
Oh,
a
is it my
precedent.
turn? I just wanted to share a handout from the Clackamas County Soil and Water Conservation District about meetings coming up, classes. And I brought enough copies so that every neighborhood could take one back and share this with their people. That's it.
Okay, Bob?
I'm working on the insurance for the neighborhood associations, and my research, my baby research so far, indicates that Nancy Ide's figures were pretty close as far as officers and directors, about $750 a year. General liability for property damage and injury to third parties, about $500 a year. And so if the city decides to reimburse the neighborhood associations in a roundabout way that they've been talking of, that would only increase or put on the budget item $12,500 for the city. So that's a pretty insignificant amount of money. I'm going to pursue multiple neighborhood discounts if you all want me to continue to pursue this. Because I'm just representing Park Place in this endeavor right now.
Yeah, I think that'd be beneficial if they can give a citywide discount or whatever that, gets it down to even $100 off is an impact. And while you say it's, $12,500 isn't a lot of money, it's the difference between whether or not concerts in the park happen or we get a newsletter mailed out or a lot of things. So if even a couple $100 is savings, and for some neighborhoods that's a lot.
And some neighborhoods, it may vary from neighborhood to neighborhood because some of the insurance companies look closely at how many residences are in each neighborhood. And so each neighborhood association, that varies quite a bit.
Yeah, but if they do this is the cost for each neighborhood, if you all go together it's 10% less, then each neighborhood would then know what their assessed value is. So that'd be useful. And if they won't, they won't. At least we know that too.
Yeah.
Next Park Place meeting is a steering committee meeting on March 18th at the same red community building that has no address. Had a presentation at our meeting last week from Kathy Roth regarding the water ballot measure, so it was quite informative. Next.
Howard, do you have anything that we need to worry about? Okay.
We got a sewer issue that we're sitting with. We got a second time.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing about whose liability is the city's or the contractor, nobody's. Last time was nobody's. The guy lost his house. I need to talk to John about it.
It's we had they pushed a new sewer line in on Apperson that between 3rd and 4th, where they fracture the old one, pull another one right through it, and it came up, but they forgot to connect up one of the laterals, and so the person found their whole basement, which was an apartment, filled up because they hadn't been going down into their basement. And so this was kind of the second time there, and where we've had a similar. These are two houses directly across the street from each other, across a set of steps. But anyway, it happened, and so it's kind of ironical, but it points out that sometimes not necessarily does everyone know what they're doing. Sorry.
Okay, Tom?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that there was another meeting for the South End Concept Plan last Wednesday. It appeared to be very successful. I haven't heard a count as to how many people were there, but it was a planning session to get ideas from the people who did participate in how they might enjoy seeing the development of that area come about. They had an opportunity to place various levels of residential housing, city kind of a building, small retail-orientated building. So it was interesting to see the different ideas that were brought forward.
Kathy?
Our next meeting is in April, but I don't remember the date.
Then you're cut off.
I think it may be the 18th, but
Okay, somewhere in there.
we have next month to talk about it.
Yeah, we have next month. And then I wanted to let everybody know that Phyllis Stockenfield Heart, which is my pet charity that I work with, is having a bingo night April 27th at the Pioneer Center. It's like 5:30 to 9. And KC Public House is going to provide the food for us. So hope everybody comes out and have a good time playing bingo, and bring your kids.
You're encouraging kids to play bingo?
You bet.
A few points here. Wanted to clarify something we hadn't talked about. Currently, as the way it stands, we still have 2 votes per neighborhood when we have elections and 1 vote for businesses. So just wanted to clarify that. So if you do have a couple people and representatives in your neighborhood, make sure they're all here for that meeting. Be seen to be voted. How many people in here who are residents of Oregon City have received a ballot for the Clackamas River water recall? It's interesting that most of you are in Oregon City Water and you're receiving the ballot.
No.
And pardon?
There's several portions of Oregon City that are still getting CRW supplied.
Well,
And
that's
they're
why
in
I'm
the-
asking, because our Trailview HOA is on CRW and we haven't received anything.
And we're on city water.
And you received it.
Yeah, we're in city too.
All right, and why we haven't, I guess, what do we call this the Clackamas County voters?
Go to the
As if
city
they don't
re-
have enough headaches. And
Yeah, go to the city recorders and find out what
the city recorder or the county?
County
City
recorder.
recorder is working on it. I contacted the county today. They couldn't figure out what was going on, but they said I was not alone in calling. They had at least 8 others call.
Gee, more problems with
Passed it over to
CRW.
Nancy Ide to see if she could straighten it out for them.
Vote early and vote often.
Maybe a broader recall than we think.
Louisiana.
Well, it was just interesting because it came up at our HOA. In Trailview off Holcomb, we're in an HOA.
That's right.
One of the smaller areas, I think, that has one of that area. But it was pointed out recently, and we got out there tonight to look. There's part of the urban growth boundary outside Trailview right behind us, and there's a pinch point there that's been always a point of controversy. Well, somebody recently, even though it's apparently it went into bankruptcy, and we're not sure who owns it, but somebody's using a tractor now to clear a roadway between the lower portion of Park Place concept plan up to the upper area. They're just clearing the path, and we're not sure who. So I was talking to John Lewis earlier to find out who's authorized to do that, and if it is bank owned, maybe the banks can do that at their whim, just to show people how the property could be developed. But that's right in a particular area of the transportation plan, which is why I was asking those questions, because that is where a potential road could go in the future. But to have someone with a tractor back there now tearing up plants, bushes, trees, all that, kind of worrisome to the neighbors in that area. The last thing is, on behalf of Commissioner Rocky Smith, they're having their Ghost Conference again this weekend up at the Pioneer Center, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if you want to learn more about ghosts of Oregon City, past, present, and future, you can attend Rocky's conference up there at the Pioneer Center. That's it. Mike.
Almost a pass. I just want to say that I'm a Kenema representative, but I have a business on Main Street, and there's been a lot of really good things down between coming up at the shopping center all the way through Main Street and downtown. Those things are looking really nice down there. And then just for my neighborhood, I had spoke with Paul at one point, and I think there's something that I see in Kenema that's been there since I was a kid, and Oregon City has a tremendous amount of ivy and blackberries and other kinds of invasive species. But typically, the ivy is
in Waterboard Park and other neighborhoods, parks, is very thick, and it's something that I just grew up with. We all kind of just thought it was part of the landscape, but it's not. And in our neighborhood, there's been some good motion towards some planning to eradicate some of that. And I was curious if other neighborhoods have been looking at that, because I think I don't know every neighborhood, but I imagine there's ivy and blackberries in a lot of neighborhoods. And if there are, I think that's something that as a neighborhood association that we could address and help out to maybe clean our city up a little bit.
Todd?
Tower Vista met on February 13th. We had Kelly Moosberger presented the South End plan and got input from the residents. We also had Icon Development came out because they had a subdivision and a building request, and they had previously presented in September, but they were nice enough to come out and answer some more questions. There's a lot of concern in Tower Vista about the amount of rezoning, upzoning, and development that's going on, and also along with that, the number of trees that are being cut down because they're doing the higher density zoning up there. So there's a lot of discussion about that. And as a result, one of the things we're going to be doing is on our March meeting, which is on March 13th, we're having a Metro representative is slated to attend to explain the relationship of Metro and zoning, and so we can try and bring up the education of the people so they know, how does that zoning happen and what they need to know about that.
Great. Okay. Katie?
I just wanted to let you know that we got our goals booklets printed, and so if you would like a goals booklet, you can pick it up before you leave.
Katie, while we're on you, can I ask a question for clarification?
Sure.
Someone said a few meetings back that cable access is cut off at after 2 hours at 9 o'clock. Is that true? Does it cut off on cable, or does it still continue on?
I don't know the
city?
answer to that because, as far as I know, the CIC meetings are not on cable.
I see them on there.
Okay.
If they do it, it's filler. I don't think it's scheduled like the planning. And
we had a question from somebody about that, if they are. I think it was Todd asked me if they were.
That was me, because I've noticed that some of the meetings are broadcast, and there seem to be. I had talked to the Willamette Falls Cable, and they seem to think that some. I think this answered me a general question that what cable channel it was on, but they weren't specific about that it was only some meetings.
Okay.
Often I see it at 3 in the morning when I can't sleep, and I'm trying to put myself back to sleep. So the question is, I remember that a couple of times he's come out and said the cable is now off, or the recording is now off, and it's usually been after 2 hours. That's why I was wondering if it records all the meeting or just up to 9 o'clock.
No. Sorry, he was saying that his mic.
No, that was just
off.
tonight, but in
okay.
previous meetings, I know he's.
That was a mistake with the system, not with
okay.
It
All
has
right.
nothing to do with the.
Because I was trying to respond to Todd, and I thought, I'm not quite sure on that.
No,
okay.
sorry.
Great. Diane.
Is my microphone on? First, Mike, if you have a problem with the invasive vegetation, call Nancy Bush, and she may be able to put whatever site you specify on the city's cleanup list. And she'll put it on the schedule. Maybe she's already made it up for this year, but maybe possibly next year, or a special cleanup.
Sure.
And they'll provide the tools and volunteers, hopefully.
Who is just for my
Nancy Bush.
Who is she?
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement.
And she organizes the citywide cleanup every year, it will be April 20th.
I know.
Yeah, the Earth Day cleanup.
Earth Day cleanup, yeah.
I know once when working in West Lynn, we came up with a great idea of which city could come up with the largest ball of ivy, and we were going to roll them down the center of the bridge. This is West Lynn's ball, and this is Oregon City's ball, and see who had the largest amount of cleanup.
That would be fun.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We could have it by the ton. You're right. Anyway, then my next comment is we had our last neighborhood meeting was February 7th, and it was a special meeting instead of our March meeting, which we've now postponed to get done away with, because Scott Archer needed to update the neighborhood association on what's going on at Rivercrest and the remodeling of the restrooms and enlarging and that type of thing. And we'd missed one other meeting; he wasn't available, so we had to kind of let him come, let everybody see what it's all about, because it's starting now. So anyway, then the next comment. Our neighborhood association is presently looking for a new meeting hall. The Presbyterian Church can no longer let us have our meetings there because of the insurance issue. So we'd certainly appreciate anything you can do and keep your research going, because we are looking for a site, and we don't have a lot of money to be paying $750 a year for insurance. So
What about
You ought to take a look at the South End Road Fire Station. That's a nice meeting
I hadn't
room.
thought about that, but we get, if we're lucky, we'll get extremely lucky, 15 to 20 people.
That'll fit it.
I know it, but most of the time we don't get that many. We'll get maybe 7 to 10. Half of it, the steering committee
Yeah,
members.
but that's a nice room
I
that
will-
will
And it's
will
available,
absorb that,
huh?
and it's and they are
Most of the time, yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and actually, Diana,
And if that doesn't work-
sometimes schools will let you do it.
We tried
We
that
don't have
originally.
any schools in our neighborhood now.
Sorry about that.
Right. Yeah. So we're in a quandary. We're doing some searching, but I certainly will check that fire station. Well, somebody suggested that pizza place up there.
Did you hear Tom's comment?
No, I'm sorry.
I said the fire station is very nice because there's lots of parking next door. If
Yes.
you do get more than 3 people.
Well, we have a real problem. Well, I guess it's not a. Yeah, it is a problem. We don't have any burning issues in Rivercrest.
Yeah.
It's all, it's developed. The roads are fairly decent. We've got a few potholes here and there, but not terrible. And unless it's some big issue, like when Clearwire wanted to put that tower on the corner of, Cherry and Park. Oh my God, that brought everybody out.
Or the current construction by Comcast on Brighton.
Nobody seems to be bothered about that. The treasurer and I talked to we walked along the street, talked to several of them. Nobody seemed to mind. I don't know what the deal is. But like I say, unless it's a really...
They all have Comcast, and they're afraid they'll get canceled.
That's probably it. Otherwise, I think everything, all's well in Rivercrest with the exception of losing our meeting hall. But we've got other options, I think, so we'll keep looking. But we certainly appreciate the research that you do or can do and share with the rest of us, because we could certainly benefit from it.
Okay, let's keep it moving.
She said it all.
Amber.
Okay, from the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, a few things. Just wanted to publicly appreciate Mayor Neely's State of the City address, and while I don't know when it will be on cable access, it will be offered via Willamette Falls Media Center. So certainly appreciate those partnerships there. He had a very thorough overview of what transpired, 2011 leading into 2012, and what's on the docket for 2013 and beyond. So Oregon City will not, this is not a dull place to be at all. Also wanted to mention, because you folks are the heartbeat of your neighborhood associations, our Chamber's Oregon City Around Town magazine, we are in the semi-final stages of putting together the next one for spring summer. So what we would love to have are your events throughout the community, whether they're neighborhood based, whether you want people to come. We would love to have those submissions sent in to us so that we can publicize your event for free. And so please let me know. I managed to scrounge up 2 business cards in case you need a way to contact me, but there are other ways available.
Does that have your email address on it?
It sure, yes. You can contact the chamber. If you take one of these, and there are several out in the lobby, you can contact the chamber through this. So would love to hear from you. And I think our deadline is, I better get this right, Monday of next week. So need to hear from you quickly.
3/11.
Next, moving along. Friday, participated in Chamber Day at the Capitol. This is where a number of Chamber of Commerce leaders from throughout the state hear about the key business issues that our state legislators are dealing with. And we had a nice meeting with State Representative Brent Barton, who represents us here in Oregon City. Also, the Chamber will host a Community Service Awards Luncheon on Tuesday, April 23rd at Ainsworth House and Gardens. And this is where annually we help recognize all of the great Lions Club efforts, the Rotary Club, the Oregon City Women's Club, the Optimists, all sorts of people who are doing great works in Oregon City, and as well as celebrating the top award winners for the school district. So that is open to the public. If you'd like more information, it is available on our website. And then we're going to have a number of folks visiting Oregon City this summer. So I want you to be thinking out a couple months, several months. The Oregon-California Trails Association will be here in later June, bringing 300 to 500 people here. Of course, we always have our girls' basketball camps and tournaments via a number of different locations. So we're very proud of that. And then there will be a first-time Clackamas Cove triathlon. So get ready, get your bicycles, your running legs, and your swimming parts
Ready.
all ready for that big one. Okay, that's it.
Next.
I've got one.
Okay, let's finish out here first. Marge, anything? Bruce. Okay. Paul.
We got noticed from the Oregon Historical Society, where the museum is that that they received 2 pylons from the Octagon from ODOT that were taken off of the bridge during the refurbishing, and they are going for a Metro enhancement grant to put those up at the museum, right kind of on the bluff area someplace, and they're going to create a educational patio with these in them, and it's going to be part of talking about the history of Oregon City right at the museum, which is right in their path and their plan. And it's kind of interestingly that this area, the museum is part of the Kenema Neighborhood Association, so they asked if we had any objection. I didn't find any reason why it's very much right down the line, and they're going to be doing other things there. So it's a nice piece of history that we have. We have a great museum there, and anything we can do to make it better is consistent with the goals of the city.
Who is we received? Is that the CIC Land Use Committee or your Kenema neighborhood? Or?
They came actually to the Kenema neighborhood.
Okay.
And asked for it if we had any objection.
Okay, so it wasn't to all the neighborhoods, just
no, but I thought it was important that everyone knows that they are making this enhancement at the museum, and that some of the artifacts from the bridge are being moved and going to be put there and creating this educational facility, and it just seemed good for everyone to know.
Okay. If there's nothing else, meeting's adjourned. We beat last